Welcome back to Pope's Projects, or what should probably be called Pope Has Too Many Projects. You guys know the 818 that's currently to the side of the garage, under a cover, waiting for spring. I'm not going to touch that till spring, and there'll be lots to do in the spring on that. You guys might have seen this thing in the corner of the garage in some of the other videos. It's a 78 Honda CB750. But we're not going to get into that one just yet. That's going to get pushed off a little further. There's actually two other motorcycles in here. There's a Yamaha Warrior, which is not really a project. There's a few tweaks left to do on it, but that's my toy that doesn't get torn apart and worked on. I actually have a new bike up here. Not a new bike, I should say. My first bike. I got a 93 Gixxer 750 up on that top shelf. That was my first bike I had a long time ago. And that's going to be a future, possibly electric bike. But not yet. So, you guys probably noticed in the videos that I had a truck cab just floating around the garage. It's actually been in the garage since about a month after I moved in this house, probably over 6 years now. This thing has been in the garage. So while I've been working on this project for 6 years, it is definitely 6 years in the making. I've built this probably a dozen different ways in my head over the years. And I was collecting parts for it when I fell in love with the 818 kit and decided to go ahead and order that. And as soon as that showed up, this got forgotten about. The parts collecting for that got forgotten about, and I've just been working on the 818. So the plan was for this winter for me to start working on this old truck cab. And then I bought the RX-8, and that's taken up some of my time. And I've got a whole pile of parts to install in the RX-8, but unfortunately there's not enough room in this garage for both the truck cab and the RX-8. So since the truck cab has been in this garage for 6 years, I'm not about to just throw it into the backyard to forget about without actually getting started on the project. So I want to do all the bodywork on the cab before it goes outside to rust, and then I'll bring the RX-8 in and install a bunch of parts for spring, so it's ready for first drift practices at Castrol. So back to the International Rat, and that's what I'm going to call this project, International Rat. It's a 41 International Harvester cab, and I'm going to build a rat rod out of it. I got the cab for free from a buddy. He collected, I want to say 3 or 4 cabs and a bunch of parts because he wanted to build a rat rod. I helped him chop the top on the first one, and it turned out good, so he had a bunch of extra parts he didn't need, and I guess that was his contribution to me, or maybe he was just trying to get rid of his junk and I've been storing it, but I got this stuff for free. I also scrapped another truck to get all the drivetrain parts, but we're not going to get into that yet, although there is a rather large engine in the garage here too, which you may or may not have noticed throughout the videos, that will be going in front of this cab. So without further ado, let's have a look at what we have. So this is what we have. Here's my cab. It's fairly solid, no major rust holes, nothing that's going to be challenging. A little bit here in the firewall, that's probably all going to get cut out anyway. The doors are in decent shape. I've got no glass, I've got no hinges, no window frames for here, but that's fine because I'm going to have to make new window frames when it's chopped. I do have a grill. It's not in the best of shape, but I think it's worth using just to tie in the front, especially since I don't plan to run a hood. So it's not really a whole lot else that I would need. It would have been nice to have hinges and glass, but I think that's a bit unrealistic for a 70-year-old truck. Does that sound right? 80-year-old truck almost. So what you're seeing there now is the best angle. Let's have a look at the other side. So I'm thinking at some point this cab got tipped over or dropped out of a truck. This whole back section is all caved in. And we got a pretty good caved in section here. Quite the tin can I have here. But if you look inside, I mean, we got really solid floor here. Even though I'm gonna have to cut a lot of it up, it's all pretty solid. There's nothing up here, but that's okay. That's all would have had to get fabricated anyway. And if you look in here, oh, I'm gonna get a light. If you look in here, there's actually a separate panel here. It's probably a inch and a half gap between them. That's in perfect condition. This top section here is all in good shape. So the plan here is to take as much out of the roof as I can, but still be able to sit in here in probably some sort of racing seat. I don't want to sit a whole lot lower than right here, and I want to be able to wear a helmet. So I got about 10 inches above me now, and I can't take 10 inches out of the windshield anyway. So I'm thinking I'll take about 4 inches out of here, and roughly 4 inches out of the back. And I may or may not have to cut into this for the seat to sit lower. And I do plan to take out a lot of this. I'm probably just going to have about 1 inch lower than the bottom of the door, and that would be, scraping the ground basically. But there's quite a bit of room in here. I got a feeling once I get this massive transmission in here that it's going to get a little tight for the pedals, but I think we got a lot of room here to chop. Before I start marking out for the chop, I'm going to try to work out as much of those dents as I can. Now it doesn't need to be perfect, and I think I'm going to replace the whole top section of the roof with a flat piece, so make it more like I believe the style is called pancake roof. But right now, while everything is in one piece and not loose and flimsy, I'm going to do what I can to get those dents out. So I'm going to start with this dent, and unfortunately I can't get to the backside to hammer it. I can kind of get a pry bar or something in there to push up on it, but I can't get back there to hammer it because there's a dash panel in here. So I've got a selection of spoons and dollies and whatnot, and then the plan is to push on the inside and then just hammer around on the high points. So, no luck so far. I got a little bit of this dent out, but this one, it's actually come out a little bit, but not much. The problem is now that I can't get in there. And I'm starting to bend this piece down. You can see a little wrinkle in the corner. So the only option is to pull it up. Now I don't have a traditional unispotter, but I do have a slide hammer. I took a slide hammer and welded a set of vice grips on the end, and I just took a welding rod, a 1/8 welding rod, and cut up a bunch of pieces. Of course you can't focus on that. So I got my little Lincoln MIG welder here. I also picked up this TIG welder recently. It's a little Lincoln on top of a Miller. If anyone's brand loyal, you're probably cringing right now. But basically, right in this valley, I'm just going to tack weld a bunch of those, and then just try to pull them out evenly. See if I can't make this look a little better. So, as you can see, it's starting to come out. It actually kind of looks worse on camera than it does in person. But it's slowly getting there. It's quite bumpy, obviously, because I'm just pulling in certain points. But it's almost to the point now where I can get a dolly in there and I should be able to hammer it close. I didn't grind all these completely down because I might want to pull from the exact spots again. And unlike like a little hole up here where I actually pulled this through, like pulled the roof material right off. So there's a little hole there, but that's okay. I got a little copper backing strip laid in there, fill it up. But I don't want to put too much heat here, so I don't want to grind them flush and then hammer more. It's going to stretch and kind of go wonky. I'll probably just leave this for tonight. Come back in the morning, maybe pull a few more of the really low spots, and then just grinder flush and leave it. I'm not trying to do finished bodywork here. I just want it decent. So, because I'm not quite sure how much of the roof I'm going to be repairing, and if I've got a big divot here and it's not fixed first, it's just going to cause me issues in the future. So I'll spend a little bit more time on that, and then I'll start pulling all this garbage in the back. So I don't know how well you can see it. There you go, there's a good angle. So this little valley here just does not want to come up. I've actually got the dent up quite a bit, but it just doesn't want to come up. So I drilled a hole, 3/16 because it was the smallest bolt I had, and so I've got a big fender washer on the other side of this, and now I'm just going to pull out on the bolt and see if I can't get the most of this. I might have to do a couple of more pulls like this just to get the big part of the crease out, and then I'll go back to a welding rod tacked on and pull out to clean up the rest of it. Doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be still better than this. I'm not sure if the camera angle is doing it justice, or maybe all the little welding rods welded on there is not helping you guys see that it is coming out very slowly. I wish it was coming out faster. My hands are getting pretty sore from using that slide hammer, but it's coming out. We're getting there. There's a few tears that happened when I started using the bolts because they were rather aggressively pulling it out. But that's okay. I was kind of expecting that, and again, I can weld that up. I did step up to a 532 welding rod because the other ones were snapping off. You've probably seen in the video I'd pull and it'd snap off because they would get thin right here at the weld, and then as I'm pulling on it, I'm not necessarily pulling perfectly straight each time because I'm just trying to get the most comfortable position to pull. So they end up going back and forth twisting, and then they break off. So I'm hoping that these 532 ones stay in a little better. Just welded on another, I don't know, 20 or so of them, all in a different spot than the previous ones. But hopefully we get this close. I'm actually going to be cutting right here because I want to leave the window there. So when I cut this open, I'll have this section off, and at that point I'll be able to smooth it out by just sliding a dolly in and cleaning it up. But it'll be a lot harder to pull them out then, I still won't be able to hit it from the inside because there's that inner structure that I didn't really want to separate from the outer structure. So if I can get them pulled out, then even remotely close, then I should be able to smooth it up enough that it's rat rod acceptable. So I'm pretty happy with how those both turned out. I could do a little more on each. Unfortunately, my little slide hammer, I pulled the threads out on 2 or 3 of the fittings that I had. I only got 1 fitting left. I want to take that to the hardware store tomorrow and get some extras. So that'll just give you an idea of how hard I'm pulling on it. But they're both out fairly close. They're both going to need a little bit more work, but that work will be easier to do once I start the chop. Like I'll have this back section and I can take it over to the workbench and I'll be able to fit a dolly in there, hammer it out. I got this little piece of copper. I've never done it before, but that's an old trick guys use. I haven't tried it with anything this thin, so I'm not quite sure how it's going to work, but the idea is that you put this behind the little holes and then you can fill them up and the weld won't stick to the copper, and you can actually build up a puddle and fill it. But that stuff I can either do after the chop or in the middle of the chop when I've got the piece on the workbench. So the only thing left to do before I start marking out the chop is shave these drip rails. I kind of like the drip rails, but I am going to have to add a section when I chop the top, and it's going to really complicate. I'm already going to have to make a new section of this whole door piece, which is quite complicated, and I'd almost had to remove this drip tray before I did that, and then I would have to extend it or make another piece for this. And to be honest, it's not really worth it, and most people when they chop the top they shave it anyway. So yeah, I guess I'll get these 2 off and then we can start talking about where I'm gonna cut. Those of you that have been following my other builds, you know that my videos tend to go a little long, and I'm going to try to prevent that or stop that with this build. So I'm going to cut the video short here. The next video, I promise you, we're just going to lay out the roof and get it cut. And it's not going to come months from now either. I'm going to continue working on this tonight, all day tomorrow, and the rest of this week, hopefully. And I'd like to get this chopped and welded back together. So another episode or two. So hopefully I'll get like 3 episodes all on this international rat, all back to back, and you guys won't be waiting months to know whether or not I did anything with it. If you haven't checked out my other videos, I got the 818 kit car, rotary powered kit car. I got the budget RX-8 drift build, which has got a bunch of parts to get installed on it as soon as I get this thing out. So check those out, like the video, subscribe. Yeah, peace.